Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to take a look at some tools that I use to analyze and screen stocks and companies. And in the past year, I've used probably over 20 tools, but these are just some of the best tools that I've found that is actually quite helpful for me. So without further ado, so the first two tools I normally use is really just a very basic news tool that just aims more specifically looking at stocks and companies and just what's going on with the economy. And so the first one that I use is called Bloomberg. Okay, so many of you have heard of it. It's not, super expensive. I think every month it's like, I think if you pay per year, it's like $200. And then you get a 3 month trial for like, $2 a month. So it's definitely worth checking out. And what I like about Bloomberg is it gives you a really overview and just a bird's eye view of what's going on in the economy. And so there's a lot of news that could affect the markets. And, of course, it's always a little too late whenever, like whenever news happens. But what I find to be helpful is just really knowing what's going on. So, for example, like right now, the Fed is talking about tapering, and so the federal chairman is just talking a lot about that, and there's always a lot of talk about crypto and IPOs and just a lot of different interesting news. So it's really an endless I guess an endless read for anybody who's really interested in this kind of stuff. So I wouldn't recommend spending too much time on this, but I think it's definitely worth having just to know what's going on. Okay, so and along the same lines of that, the second tool that I like to use is something called Business Insider. Okay, so this right now says Insider.com, but it's very similar to Bloomberg, except I find that their articles and their content is really pretty good in terms of covering different parts of the world. And so it's another good tool. I think generally these tools are pretty unbiased. They just talk about what's going on. They don't really have any particular agenda. I mean, there are articles that talk about different companies to take a look at, but I would say their focus is not really like a screener or some kind of a company that promotes different stocks. So check out businessinsider.com. Okay, the third tool that I like to use, and this is really more for people who are vested, definitely more into the long term. And when I talk about long term, I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 years. And this tool is called Capex Insider. So they they basically invest in asymmetric opportunities. So basically like just themes. They have this bucket of themes, right? That they invest in, and it's based off of I think really good research. Every week they send out a newsletter and they talk about some of the things that's going on in the world. And I just think, Chris McIntosh and these guys and their team, they do a really good job of, digging deep into research and just figuring out, just where the world is heading towards. Okay, so, so they have this section where they have their entire portfolio of what they're currently invested in. They have themes they're invested in. What I also find quite helpful is they have a forum. So of people wanting to just ask different questions or have dialogue into whatever they're invested in. Okay, so it's something that I don't use a whole lot, but I do check it out every now and then, just whenever I have time. Okay, so the fourth tool I like to use. So by the way, the Capex Insider is about $1,000 a year. I think you can do a free trial for a month, and if for some reason you don't find it helpful or you're just not something that you don't want to use, then that's completely money. They have a 100% money back guarantee, so you can get your money back anytime within 30 days if you don't like their service. Okay, so the fourth tool I like to use is very simple. So every day I check this just because I like seeing, just the biggest movements in the market. So it's just investing.com. And this is where I sometimes just get a chance to see opportunities that could be good to buy. And, so there's a lot of times they'll show the top gainers for the day, and they'll have the top losers for the day. And, this tool has basically allowed me to find opportunities like Amazon, Pinterest. When I was down like 20%, Amazon was down like 7-8%. Just solid companies, right? And part of using this is you have to understand, or you have to have a good idea of what companies are pretty solid. So that way, when you see, the company show up on investing.com as one of the top losers for the day, then you can definitely consider, picking that up in your portfolio. Of course, you want to see what catalysts there are that cause the stock to go down so much, and could be like a missed earnings call or some kind of news or something. But if there's nothing that really, just has good reason for a stock to go down, but the company is a pretty good company, then I would say it's worth considering adding to your portfolio. Now, one thing to mention is sometimes you don't want to add it immediately to your portfolio. It's always good to, there's a rule called a 3-day rule where, generally it's often helpful, I would say, to give it, 2 or even 3 days for the stock to see if the sentiments continue to drive the stock down. And so that was one of the mistakes I made, was I picked up, Pinterest and Amazon just a little too quickly. They still had a few more days to run down, and so that's something that I've learned in the last few months. So taking a look at, just yesterday, I saw one company, Hibbett Sports. It's one of the companies that I'm personally invested in, and has pretty good fundamentals. And it was down 9%. So I went ahead and picked up, a couple, some shares, and then I also executed an option trade. Now, I did do what I just told you not to do. I generally would wait a few days, but I just thought this company was just pretty solid. There wasn't any catalyst that I thought, made sense for the stock to go down. So I just went ahead and picked it up. Okay, the fifth tool that I use, and these two tools, investing.com and NASDAQcom, are both free, completely free. In fact, the next tool, I'll switch this around, is also free. There's paid options, but I think the free option is good enough. Okay, so I just used NASDAQ.com, and NASDAQ.com is actually quite useful. So let's say, you want to take a look at, I'm going to use the company that I just told you about that I was invested in, Hibbett. Okay, so what I find useful about NASDAQ.com is it gives you a lot of really important information that's really, really helpful. For example, you can take a look at the insider activity. You can see if people within inside the company are buying themselves. And it looks like, in the last 3 months, there are some people buying within the company. The last, 12 months, there's people who have been selling and buying. And you can take a look also at their earnings. So you can take a look at the earnings per share for, the quarter that we're in. There's press releases and just whatever, so yesterday they published their second quarter results. There's different news that you can take a look at. There's also something that's not on every company, but like just analyst research. So if you don't want to buy, like a screener, you can just take a look at NASDAQ.com. And as you can see, there's been some strong buys from a couple different analyst firms. And, they also have a price forecast of what they think the price is going to go up to. Okay, so this is extremely helpful, especially for a free tool. And so I would definitely use NASDAQ.com pretty often. And the sixth tool I want to talk about is something called Finviz.com. Again, it's a free tool. They have a paid option too, but I think the free tool is good enough. And what I like about Finviz is I'm just going to use the same company again and use Hibbett. Okay. You put in your stock ticker on the top left, and it gives you a really just a lot of great helpful information. You do pick up a lot of ads, so just close it out. So first of all, they give you the chart, of course, to see what any price movements in the last couple of days. And then what I really find helpful is they have a really simple, just chart of a lot of information that I find most people want to take a look at, especially whenever you're trying to identify if a stock is good to pick up. And so you got your PE, your forward PE, your PS, your PB. So all these are really important information for you to take a look at. One of the things I also take a look at is something called RSI, so the relative strength index, and that just tells you how overbought or how oversold the stock is. And generally, if the higher the number, if it's above 50 or above 60, 70, that means it's overbought. Okay, so that means a lot of people are buying it, and like it doesn't necessarily mean that it can't continue to go up. A lot of times if a lot of people are buying it, there's a reason why. But like sometimes I do like seeing low RSIs, like below 40, just because it tells me that more people have actually sold it, and it could be a good opportunity to buy in. Okay. So it also tells you just some of the transactions within the insider ownership. So I think that's one of the reasons why the stock actually went down, because there was a 21% change moving downwards of people inside owning the stock. It could just be that they're selling it because they want to take some profits after the earnings call. So in my opinion, I think with a pretty low PE, pretty good value for the stock, and really earnings that are pretty great. Like next year, not looking as good, but this year still looking great. There's just a lot of different reasons why I think this stock is okay, right? I'm not invested a whole lot into it, but it's something that it's just one of the stocks that I picked up. Okay, so the next tool I'm going to take a look at is called Barchart.com. Okay, Barchart.com is really helpful, especially if you trade options. They have a free option and paid option they can use. Even with the free option, they give you a lot of really helpful tools. If you're new to option trading, you can take a look at some of the different trade strategies that you can use. For example, the one that I typically use the most of is the bull put credit spread. So it gives you some ideas on what companies you can take a look at. Yeah, even with the free service, I used to use the paid service, but then I realized I didn't use this as much for like with the paid service. I just really downgraded to the free service, and so just take a look at that. It gives you ideas and trades. It even tells you the probability and just different trades you can use. So for example, the bull put spread is generally when you sell a put and then buy a put at a lower strike price, and they'll even give you the two legs. So you basically buy the put at 155 expiring September, you sell the put at 150 again expiring in September, and the max profit is 244%. So it's pretty good, right? And it just gives you different ideas. You can sort it by the highest probability. You can sort it by the max profit. There's different things you can do to play with that. And then the other thing that's really useful about barchart.com is you can actually take a look at some of the more unusual options volume. So let's say you're looking at some of the stocks and you want to know, okay, is there good a volume to trade options on? Or you might just want to know what are people looking at that's pretty interesting. And the other thing that I find really useful is the highest implied volatility feature on barchart.com. So the highest implied volatility just really tells you which stocks have the highest premium. So this is good for if you're selling puts, or if you're trying to collect premiums on covered calls, it'll give you a good idea of which stocks will pay the most premium. So you can just take a look at some of the stocks that have the highest implied volatility. And as we all know, or especially if you've been trading options for a while, the higher the implied volatility, the higher the premium it'll give you. Okay, so there's a lot of different other tools that's pretty helpful. I would say, even looking at some of the stocks, some of the suggestions, I typically don't use this for suggestions, but there's trading signals that gives you, right? So they tell you like some of the companies that are good to own, some of the companies that have good strength, good signal strengths. But what I would say, they have some good. What I would say is they have some pretty good recommendations, but they also have some ones that I didn't find too good as well. So it's just like use this as a tool, but simply at that, right? You don't want to go all in just using Barchart and some of these other tools. You never want to go in all in just really on one company, even if you have high conviction. Okay, you typically want to try and diversify a little bit. Okay, so the last couple tools I use, I'll just kind of go through it with you pretty quickly. The first is called SeekingAlpha.com. This feature is best used when you pay when you pay for it, right? And I think it's not too expensive. I think it's like $600 a year. There's different. I think there's different categories or different subscriptions you can pay for. But what I find useful is there's a lot of information. There's really, I think they publish like over 200 articles a day. So it's endless reading. And there's some companies that I wish I had read about. For example, yesterday, support.com, when it jumped like really high because, it got into the whole crypto world. It was one of those things where I saw the article later, but it was a little too late. So, and then they also have, top stocks. It's a really good screener in that they help do all the legwork and basically finding the companies with the best, with the top and best valuations on earnings and everything that you want to know. They even do it by quant. They have they divide it by growth, dividend, value, all that. So it's a great tool to use, and they even give you ideas on what stocks to take a look at. And what I like about it is there's a lot of companies and a lot of people who are really knowledgeable, and they take the time to write analysis over different companies, and so you really just get a chance to understand a company a lot more than if you were just to try and research yourself. So what I would say is it's always helpful to get as much information as possible, and you want to identify if the information is good. Okay, so if it's something that and I think that just takes time over time. You sort of learn what kind of information is actually good versus what kind of information is just fluff, right? A lot of information that is good will be based off of fundamentals, research, things that are not just opinion, and so, or speculation. Okay, the second last tool I use called Tiprinks.com. It's very similar to Seeking Alpha. It has a little different twist to it. They have a smart portfolio. They have smart scores. Again, it's very similar in that it'll give you a lot of research on different stocks, but it also tells you, just it gives you ideas of what analysts are saying and their price prediction, and you can even follow some analysts who have done pretty well. So these are some of the analysts I follow. Their success rate is pretty high. Their average return rate is pretty high. So generally, whenever they signal or they have some kind of recommendation to buy something, they'll show me an email. And again, this service is not super expensive. I think it's like $700 a year or something like that. There's an even higher tier that I was using for a while. I think it's like over $1,000, $2,000. But I just went with the mid tier just because I find that I don't really need the most all the top information. But yeah, so I think this is a pretty good tool. It even gives you some of the stocks and companies that insiders are buying, so you don't have to go to NASDAQ.com. I think what's good about screeners is they generally give you an idea of what stocks other people are looking at. And while that sounds counterintuitive, because you might think, oh well, you want to try and do what other people are not doing. Well, I would say like that's not really a good way to think about it. Especially if you think about crypto, right? Like even like your uncle and your uncle's grandfather is probably trading crypto right now, but it's still going up quite a bit. So it's all about just understanding what's going on in the market, some of the fundamentals behind the company, and so long as something things just sort of make sense, like the company is making money, it's not overpriced. If you're able to trade it at a discount, if it just makes sense, then oftentimes it'll probably be a pretty good trade. Okay, so of course I can't I can't tell the future. If I could just have a time machine and go back one day, I would be a millionaire or just a really, really rich person, but I can't, right? So you can never really predict what will actually happen. But I think if you trade based off of good fundamentals, you should do pretty well. The last tool I use is called Optionstrat.com, and this just makes trading options a lot easier. You can type in your symbol, and it'll give you different trades. It'll tell you the chance of well, with the paid option you'll see the chance of it actually making a profit. You actually don't really need to know that, because if you trade on just a tool called Robinhood, or if you don't even use Robinhood, you can just get a Robinhood account and just put in your trades, and it'll tell you that. So, but I think this just gives you different ideas of what you can do. What I find helpful with this is just if you're starting out doing options, it's a really helpful tool to know, which different tools you can use to trade options. I would say generally, if you're trading options, don't make it too complicated. You don't want to get confused by what you're trading. Okay, so the last tool that I use, okay, I actually lied to you. It was not Optionstrat. I would say, I really think Robinhood is a great tool. Not because, I think they're a great company. I think, I do think they've made trading options too easy to a point where people are just gambling now. They're not really taking a look at fundamentals. They probably go on Reddit and they see their friends talking about like Bed Bath and Beyond and AMC, whatever. But and so like I don't think it's a great company in that it made trading options too easy, but it's still a helpful tool. And by that I mean, don't use it for a big chunk of your portfolio. I would say just use it for the ease of trading and understanding the profitability of your option trades. So just to give you an idea of how I use it. So whenever you're trading, using Robinhood, you can go into Robinhood.com. You can go ahead and trade options, and Robinhood makes it so easy in that it'll tell you the break even point, how much it needs to change. You can let's just do a bull credit spread. So if I'm buying a put and selling, well, let's just do that. So I'm buying a put, expiring way out, and then selling a put that's higher. Okay, so a bull put spread. Okay, so it'll give you this little chart that's extremely helpful, and that will tell you how much it needs to increase to make the profit, and then I'll tell you how much it will need to decrease to lose money, and I'll tell you the max profit, the max loss. It's really just a really easy tool to use, especially if you're new to trading options. So I think that's pretty much it. I didn't really discuss the specific strategies I use, but I really think I just wanted to cover some of the overview ways to take a look at different companies that are good to trade, and I hope it's helpful for you. If you like my content, if you want me to go a little deeper into some of my strategies and some of the ways I'm trading, make sure you like and subscribe and comment. And until next time, I will see you then.